Good day to all of you, the participants of the Roundtable number 2 of this season. My name is Jukka Kantola and I'm the founder of the World Bioeconomy Forum. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this second World Bioeconomy Roundtable of the season 2022. You are all warmly welcome to this occasion. Today we have again wide range of the participants. Looks like that we have participants from the 36 countries representing basically all continents. So we are very pleased to have you us today. As always within these roundtables, we are having a sort of tandem hosting arrangement. So I'm here in Finland, actually currently in Ruka, and Mark is in the UK. So good to have you back, Mark. All well with your end?
All good, my end, thank you. I'm just recovering from my second dose of COVID, unfortunately. We have a little bit of a pandemic or epidemic going on here as well in the UK. Quite a lot of people off with it. Finally, it seems to have hit, but that's the new world, that's the new normal, and that's really what we have to get used to. So that's life. And really looking forward to this roundtable today. We've got some fantastic panelists. We're focusing on one of our 4 pillars. Which is, of course, bioeconomy, people, planet, and policies. We've got a great lineup of panelists, and of course, we have a great moderator in Dr. Christian Patermann. So, Jukka, tell us how things have been progressing with the forum since the last roundtable.
Yeah, with the pleasure, Mark. So, indeed, the latest roundtable took place on 10th of February, and it was about the bioproduct around us. If you missed that, you can still see that from our YouTube channel, and it has been actually seen over 2,600 viewers. So it's getting quite a viral. So let's see that what do we get out of this roundtable? So there we are. But getting today, no doubt that we are again in the middle of a new turmoil. That we are just about getting over the global pandemic, not always told by Mark, but we are now witnessing a new storm evolving. I mean, the Russia-Ukraine crisis, we took off actually February 24th. Quite few of us were expecting that we will see such a brutal developments taking place in 2020s. It has now lasted 6 weeks precisely. 42 horrifying days for the world and especially for the Ukrainians. We all know that this is all will have implication not only for the global policies, but all kind of supply chains we are facing, like energy, but several sectors within the bioeconomy. I think we are sharing this view that the entire globe is awaiting that the war will be over sooner than later. And just a day before of that burst in Ukraine, we announced our annual forum, World Bioeconomy Forum Talks on Climate, live from Ruka, which will be held in the beginning of September, 7th to 9th September 22. So we are getting back to our original location as we are rotating these locations, in the global south and global north. So now it's time to have this again here in Ruka. When it comes to program planning, it is progressing well. We are again expecting some 55 top level and actual speakers and panelists. Already now, over 40% of them have been confirmed their participation. And what best, all of them are indicating they will be in Ruka in person. So you are also welcome to join along to this forum. We have already announced session heads and moderators through our channels, and on coming weeks time we are then announcing also the speakers and panelists. So please stay tuned. As said, this year theme for the forum is about what is the interconnection between the bioeconomy and bioproducts related to climate change mitigation. We'd like to learn more on this. Like this week, on Monday, April 4th, IPC published its latest report stating that the time is now for the action. There are a good number of endorsable measures in that publication, but one can always ask, what's the role of the bioeconomy? What's the role of the bioproducts on that all? So that we are trying to learn during this season. So all look good in respect to Forum 2022, but that's not only thing that we have doing that recently. So some other activities that we've been then provided you. So maybe Mark, you could then elaborate a bit on this.
Yeah,
Please.
sure. There's always something going on at the World Bioeconomy Forum. Jukka keeps us always busy with his ideas and implementation. So the great thing is the forum's bioeconomy circle is really showing signs of growth and popularity. We have a number of new members there. So we have Andritz, Kula, Supersilica, Taglieri Bioindustry, Tornata, and Oulu University. Also, the circle has been joined by Jane Maloney, who's a very well-known in the bioeconomy in South Africa. Circle's a great place where members join a little bit more knowledge. We drill down a little bit further. We get all the sort of gory details, shall we say, of the bioeconomy. We, how it's all going into practice, new products, new technology, all that sort of thing. So if anybody's interested in joining that, we have a great guy, Matthias Zilcher. For more information, you can find it on our website and he'll help you along. It's a great circle. It's a fantastic networking opportunity and a great place to learn things. And also our news channel is progressing very well. It's the only one in the world. It's where you can get informed on the world, whatever's happening in the bioeconomy around the world straight away. We've now got a commercial platform for that. So we've actually got people paying to show their wares and to throw their ideas at us. So if anybody's interested in that as well, that's also all available on our website. But let's get back to the roundtable. Jukka, tell us more about what we're going to hear today.
Yeah, with the pleasure. So indeed, today the roundtable is focusing on the thematic area, the bioeconomy, people, planet, policies, which is actually the session by which we are always opening our annual conferences. So it's so pivotal when it comes to this World Bioeconomy Forum. And another three pillars that we have in our activities and all our events are the second pillar is named as the corporate leaders and the financial world. Then the third pillar is the bioproduct around us, because we'd like to bring up showcases about what kind of products and services does this sector provide to all of us. And then finally, look into the future, where is that the thematic area of this specific year will be especially discussed. So this is our way that how do we then evaluate the status of circular and bioeconomy, because we are not sort of, let's say, stuck on the very strict definition of the bioeconomy, because they are all kind of bioeconomies which are evolving. So instead, we are evaluating the status of the bioeconomy through these four pillars. So today, indeed, we are focusing on recently announced biostrategies. So what has happened since our last forum in October in Brazil? So this is like follow-up of that what about the action plan? So how these strategies will be implemented. So we will hear that pretty soon. So we are very excited to hear on this presentation from the excellent lineup of the speakers who will get introduced by Dr. Christian Patermann. So and maybe some notion also about that what's the interconnection in the bioeconomy and climate change. We want to be seen. So with these words, Mark, maybe you could then introduce that how do we run this all today, please?
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, we have an excellent lineup for you today on the subject of bioeconomy, people, planet, and policies. And we've got a great panel. And we always like to make these events as interactive as possible. So I can see that already a lot of you have used the chat channel to say hello to everybody. Yeah. We've got a really good, sociable, friendly bunch here, Jukka, today, which is really good. Yeah. Please use that chat channel to ask any questions that you want, or if you want to put some comments in, you're most welcome. Please use it, and we will try and siphon as many of those questions and comments as possible, and then we'll put them to the panelists themselves. I think without any further ado, Jukka, let's get on with it, shall we? Yeah, I'd like to introduce now Christian Patermann, who will also be introducing all of our panelists today. Dr. Patermann is widely known as the father of the European bioeconomy, and is a former director at the EU Commission and advisor to the German government on bioeconomy matters. I could read out a lot more about Christian's bio because he's done an enormous amount of stuff, but we won't. I will introduce you now, Christian, and the floor is all yours. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much for your very kind words, Jukka, and also Mark. Indeed, and welcome to everybody who is all over the world in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. Indeed, the activities of this pillar, the people, planet policies, they belong to the core activities of the Bioeconomy Forum, and since the beginning in 2018. And we had speakers ranging from the United States to China, from Uruguay to Germany, and also within regions, Basque Country, Karelia, etc. And also giants like FAO, like World Health Organization, European Union, they were speaking. But the absolute climax, the absolute highlight of global dimension happened last year in Brazil, when we had representatives from Colombia, when we had representatives from Indonesia, when we had representatives from Portugal, the East African Union, and Catalonia, and Indonesia, and that has never happened before in the international world, and that's why we said to us, why are we not going to deepen what we were starting to discuss at that time? Because the normal way is, as you all know, that people, when they talk about biostrategies, about action plans and roadmap, they just describe what's happening, their visions, etc. But they don't tell you what's really happening. Where are the obstacles? Where are the concrete hindrances? Where are potentials which might be different from others, etc. And that's why we told us we are going to reassemble the people from Belém last year and add them from the state of Pará, who surprised us at that time with its own strategy. Unfortunately, we're not able to get Madame Nur from Indonesia this time, because she has become the leader of a task force which is now preparing the transfer from the capital of Jakarta to Kalimantan. So I understand she's joining us today, and I would welcome her very much. So we are going to discuss not strategies and what might be the future, but what is happening. Where are the problems? What can we learn from each other? And that's why in the first 50 minutes, each of my panelists will have about 8 to 9 minutes to present its case. We are then around 16:05. That means after 50 minutes, we are going to have a discussion among ourselves, highlighting indeed what I said, what is happening, where are the obstacles, where are the unique selling points which you had, how do they differ from each other, did COVID play a role? Is there a beginning maybe of tropical forest or not, etc. And in particular, each of the panelists has to tell us 4 or 5 lessons learned he wants to share, so that you will have carry-on messages. And after that, around 4:30, that means 20 minutes or 25 minutes before 5, my time here, we are going to involve you from the audience, and then we are going to summarize a few minutes before 5 o'clock. So let's start with Marisa. Marisa from Portugal. She was responsible for the Portuguese action plan, which was published in November, December. And in the meantime, there were elections, and we never knew what will happen. That's always a black story, a black hole in many countries of the world. But Marisa has now been appointed the director, the head of development of strategies and economic analysis in the very famous Portuguese APA. That is the Portuguese Institute for Environment, the Agency of Environment. And there she will be responsible for the bioeconomy action to be realized in the future. So I'm happy, dear Marisa, that you're with us here. Congratulations. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you for your kind words, and good afternoon to everyone. I would like to ask to the organization to put my presentation. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, since the event in Belém, where I present the main guidelines of the, sorry, the next slide, if you don't mind, just the next, thank you. So since the event in Belém, where I present the main guidelines of the Portuguese strategy for the sustainable bioeconomy, there have been many developments that I will describe during my presentation. And as I explained in the October last year, the starting point of the architecture of this action plan were the three pillars of the European strategy bioeconomy. And we thought that we need to have some way to think, and we start first of all to the definitions of the principal guidelines. Then the value chain of the primary activities, such as agriculture, forest, fisheries, and aquaculture. And we evaluate and did a SWOT analysis to define the main measures and actions necessary. This was done in a matrix model, and it was organized within the 4 sectors in the horizontal axis and with the value chain in the vertical axis, as you can see on the slide. The result and the overview of all these measures and integrations in the cluster result in 5 pillars. After that, during November last year, the action plan underwent public consultation, and there was 17 participations, not much, but let me say that almost all participation gave us very pertinent remarks, and most of the comments were considered and reflected on the final document. And just to give you an example, the importance of the ecological and economical service provided by pollinators were missing in the strategy, and then we put it in the final document. So on the end of November, the plan was approved by the resolution of Council of Ministers and finally published. Next slide, if you don't mind, please. So this plan will introduce the major intervention areas, namely the promotion of sustainable use of biological resource, investments in research and innovation, investments in a more circular sustainable bioindustry, and the awareness of the society for a more responsible consumption. And the last area, but also very, very important, the last pillar is dedicated to the monitoring of the plan. So the plan will have a special focus also in 3 strategic sectors in the Portuguese economy: the textile and clothing, the footwear, and resin. These are the investments under the C12 component of the Recovery and Resilience Plan of Portugal. This is a European mechanism for economic recovery after pandemic. So I would like to highlight that these investments in these 3 sectors must be in line with the European Sustainable Finance Action Plan, which introduced the concept of do no significant harm to any of the 6 environmental objects. What this means is that the redirection of the finance flows to a more sustainable activities finds here a kind of shield that protects each of the environment objectives. And it intends to ensure that this measure will not support activities that bring pressure to another environmental problems, which, regardless the economic benefits potential generated, produce negative effects on biodiversity, on water ecosystems, or on mitigation and adaptation of climate change. So in the past 6 months, some actions of the plan have been initiated, like the protocol regarding concerning the resineiros. This is a very important to the production of resin, natural resin, and the publish of the reform new regime for waste management. That is an essential milestone that aims to simplify procedures regarding the use of bio-based industry waste. And at this point, we can say that the plan for 2022 is on track. If you don't mind, next slide. So now I would like to focus on the current progress of the investments on research and research and innovation in the bioeconomy. We have 145 million euros of funding dedicated to the three sectors that I referred. 71 million euros to the textile and clothing, 41 million euros to footwear, and 33 million euros to natural resin. Next slide, please. So for these three big investments, we launch a call for consortia, and three consortia were selected right now, one for each sector, that represents more than 160 entities and 235 million euros of investment, and involve the sector clusters with the integrated and holistic approach. Now, the consortia that were selected will have 60 days to detail the integrated project. And we hope that we sign the contracts and start the integrated projects in the end of the second quarter of 2022. The progress of the implementation of this action plan will be monitored by the interministry body of governance coordinated by the Ministry of Environment, and will include many entities, as you can see in the slide, from agriculture, maritime affairs, economic, digital transition, science and technology ministry, and this is very important. Next slide, please. Regarding the consortia, I would like to highlight the results. So in textile and clothing sector has a total project investment of 132 million euros involving 54 partners, majority of which from the north of Portugal. The footwear sector includes a total project investment of 75 million euros involving 68 partners, also the majority from north of Portugal, and also a high representation from the center. And for the natural resin the sector, we have a budget of 28 million euros and 38 partners, mainly from the north and the center of Portugal. All the candidates include NGOs, higher education, institutional, national scientific, technology systems, and enterprises. And you can see the distribution of these entities in the pie graphs. And we think that it is expected that the indirect impacts of these investments will greatly exceed these values in these three sectors and in others that have synergies with these sectors. Next slide, please. Finally, and to conclude, I want to highlight that the involvement of the society and the industry in the development phase of the plan, as well as the public consultation, allow us to have a more robust plan. Having a clear definition of bioeconomy agreement with the different stakeholders in the process, it was essential, and only at this point, when we have the clear definition of bioeconomy, we felt that the development of the process accelerated. The pandemic caused by COVID-19 delayed the publication of the action plan, but allow us to improvement of points that had become critical, namely regarding supply chains, and reinforced the importance of the use of local raw materials. So the European mechanism for economic recovery post-pandemic has allowed us for increase the investment on bioeconomy area, and we felt that this raised the awareness of business and society in Portugal in general to the bio-based products, and this is also very important. Last, The call for integrated bioeconomy projects in the three sectors exceeded all market expectations, and the key success factor was the chosen champions for each sector, and this was really important, the check-ins. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very, very much. Muito obrigado to Marisa for very concrete troika, concrete actions, and strategies. Then a very concrete way how to implement, and that is being implemented by industrial consortia widespread over the country with a very interesting participation of many, many stakeholders. We are going to discuss further on that. Thanks. The next one is a new face for us, dear friends, and there's Jorge Alonso Cano from Colombia. Jorge, bienvenido. He is a chemical engineer and market expert, and he has been vice rector of research, University of Santander, and director general of the International Center for Medical Training and Research. And he is advising now the Ministry of Science and Technology and responsible for the implementation of the new Colombian strategy. And tú tienes la palabra. We are very curious on listening and learning from what has happened the last 6 months.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks to the World Bioeconomy Forum, to Jukka and Mark for inviting us to share with you all that are following our roundtable through the web, the latest developments and advances on the implementation of the bioeconomy mission of Colombia. First of all, we receive the greetings from our Minister Tito Christian and our Vice Minister Sergio Cristancho Nelson Orozco and our Director Julian Ferro, who have sponsored the work of the bioeconomy mission that has been co-led by my great friend Arturo Luna and myself, and supported by our teammates Juan Martinez, Ginette Parrado, Luis Teran, Diana Polania, Claudia Tinacá, Sandra Garcia, and Jorge Valencia, among others. Then please, I will appreciate, Tammy, you can share with me, or do you prefer I put the presentation from here? I am not finding sorry, I find it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Then do start.
Okay. Then, first of all, I want to mention the importance of having a proper institutional space for discussing and building the strategy that we had. We started from the green growth policy and enriched it with the recommendation from the biodiversity and bioeconomy mission that was proposed by the Commission of Experts in 2019 that we had in the past. This building Spain has been the Sustainable Technical Public-Private Committee in the frame of the National Commission of Science, Technology, and Innovation and Competitiveness. There, with the support of the Presidential Council for Competitiveness and the National Planning Department, we, the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, took the leadership for the implementation and follow-up of this bioeconomy mission. With more than 20 entities in this committee, including a presidential council in ministries, national departments, national environment research institutes, a representative of the private sector, we discussed and agreed the strategic area of bioeconomy mission and built an interinstitutional action plan, which has been embodied in a matrix where each entity is presenting the action they are committed with for the implementation of the bioeconomy mission, defining the actions, the indicators, goals, the estimated investment required for reaching those goals for 2020, 22, 2026, 2030, when we expect that the economy becomes a fully integrated sector in the Colombian economic structure with social, economical, and economical benefits. It is expected that through this tool, we can follow and monitor the implementation of the mission through the advances that the different entities will be reporting quarterly. Actually, we are very soonly we will be publishing this action plan in our in the ministry web page that will be available for all the public. But now we are starting to use this one, and this is a briefly report of the first report that we have in December 31. For example, the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development reported the issuance of a decree for sustainable management of the wild flora and non-timber forest products, more than 400 contracts of genetic resources access, including 19 with commercial purposes, and the preparation of a new decree for improving this process. Also, more than 3,000 green businesses registered, and the operation of the web portal Useful Plants for Colombia, which is the result of international cooperation from them and us in the Science, Technology, Innovation Ministry with UK through BASE and Kew Gardens, and the participation of the Alexander von Humboldt Institute. Also, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and its research institute, AgroSavia, have reported developments on the bioinputs development for cacao and oil palm that will be quite useful in the current situation of the crisis in the inputs for agricultural. Also, advances in the update of the regulation for the registration of agricultural bioinputs, new vegetal varieties and with biotic and abiotic factors tolerance, and also the publication, the AgroSavia's corporate bioeconomy guidelines. In his side, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Tourism has presented a very comprehensive strategy to attract sustainable investment to the country through the National Promotion Agency ProColombia, and also a special line credit through the Development Bank, Bancoldex, for circa $8 million for sub-credits for medium and small firms for RD&A projects in bioeconomy. Also, they have published a very complete and beautiful natural tourism guide, which is available in Spanish and English, that you can enjoy it through the link in English that I presented in this site. Also, with the Ministry of Mines and Energy, together with Ecopetrol, our 80% owned nation oil company, we have subscribed a cooperation agreement for supporting the funding project on low-emission hydrogen production and carbon capture through natural solutions projects, including the measurement of this capture, in order to support with scientific evidence future carbon bonds related to our ecosystems and agroforestry schemes, which will have a positive and definitive impact on the sustainable use of the forest as carbon, scavenger, and sequestrant, converting it in biomass, liberating oxygen, and contributing to stop the deforestation of tropical forest. We, in the Science, Technology, and Innovation Ministry, have promoted new policy instruments such as public calls for R&D and innovation programs and projects focused on high tier R, promoting schemes related with R and innovation mission-oriented policies applied to bioeconomy. A new one that we name it BatBio, that is an innovative bioproduct acceleration process that we have developed and implemented with the Colombian branch of the Global Green Road Institute with cooperation resources from the UK Partnering for Accelerated Climate Transition, UK Pact, the flagship of the UK International Climate Funds and portfolio. Thanks to the good results of the first round, our allied Triple GI is now receiving new funds for accelerating a new group of bioproducts and developing new additional activities for speeding the bioeconomy mission implementation, including innovation challenges and a devoted interinstitutional task force. Also, there are new tools in intellectual properties, spin-off promotion, scientific expedition support, strengthening scientific natural tourism projects and collections and biological collections, and the tax credits. For the application of this portfolio, we managed during the last 2 years, we really dug it and found and managed different funding ways and resources from the National Budget Fund, as is illustrated, around $25 million. The yield from the Science, Technology, and Innovation Fund in $1.5. But one of the major fund sources is the new royalty management law that allows to Colombia today to really be able to show the royalties from the oil and mining sectors, converting that in an investment of circa $31 million in the regions, building a new and sustainable future based on bioeconomy through different projects. Also, with the science, technology, and innovation tax incentives are contributing to motivate the private sector to invest in bioeconomy. And in this way, 37 firms have applied to this incentive for circa $15 million, including the new scheme for tax credits for medium and small companies. Also, the last but not the least, the resources from international cooperation have been around $7.5 million, figure that we expect and need to grow in the next future. With these resources, we have been able to fund circa 256 different initiatives, as shown in the right side of your screen. This is some of the examples of the type of the project that we have been supporting, with some results in agricultural bioinputs for rose, avocado, cacao, bioplastics, some phytochemicals. But also, other key point on the evolution of the Bioeconomy mission is the integration with the regions and oceans, which has been to be recognized as a key factor for the bioeconomy. The guidelines that we discuss in the Sustainable Committee at a national level, we took them and went to the regions, share, discuss, and enrich with the perspective from the regions and territories in order to build regional agendas and roadmaps for bioeconomy according to the conditions, resources, capabilities of each territory, but always keeping in mind to promote the development of local value-adding processes, which will allow sustainable local growth with social, environmental, and economic criteria. For this purpose, we developed presential and virtual workshops in the different regions, gathering the point of view of the local players in terms of potential valuable resources and projects related with the economy. A total of 876 people participated in those workshops and shared their information on the bioeconomy. And right now, our partner, the University of Valle, is processing all this information, and soon we will be receiving the results of this exercise to be included in our action plan. If I will try to summarize the Colombia Bioeconomy Mission learning sessions, I will say, first of all, is interinstitutional articulation. Secondly, a new portfolio of new policy instruments and funding strategies. Third, a dynamic international cooperation. And fourth, inclusiveness, territoriality, and intersectorality to manage that. But always, you will need a lot of conviction and passion to push it ahead, that allow that the country commitment will be that knowledge, science, biodiversity, and biomass converge and become a powerful force for economic growth and social and sustainable development. On behalf of my colleagues and teammates from the Bioeconomy Mission, from the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, and other entities that have been working with us for making bioeconomy a real social, environmental, and economical sustainable pathway for Colombia, many thanks. Thanks, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, Jorge. Abrazos to all the teams which worked with you. Give them the best regards from the forum. I'm deeply impressed about the progress you made, and I particularly found interesting the way that you are now using the royalties from mining and oil companies, for the bioeconomy. That's a fantastic example. Thank you very much. We are now moving to an old friend from Africa, Julius Ecuru. He's Mr. Bioeconomy in Central Africa, the program manager of Bioinnovate. Bioinnovate, which is responsible for the East African Union strategy, and he's in the Insect Physiology and Ecology ICP Institute, the leader for that as a BSc in chemistry, environmental sciences, and PhD in technology. Now, you have a very difficult job because, you know, you are not talking about just a strategy of one country, but of a big, big union with a high diversity. So what has happened since the last conference, the second one, and since we met in Belém? We are very curious to see the progress in Africa. Julius, dear friend, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Christian. And first of all, before I share our experience, I would like to thank Jukka, Mark, and all the leadership of the World Bioeconomy Forum for inviting me to this webinar today. Also, a very special appreciation to all the panelists on this, this webinar. So let me share my screen and give some update on what has been happening from this side. So just let me know if you're able to see.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
It's okay.
So I'll start here. So what happened then after Belém is we organized a regional bioeconomy conference with the theme Building a Sustainable and Resilient African Bioeconomy. This conference was attended by over 600 people from the region and globally. And we did produce a communique, which really underscored the need for us to cooperate more as a region, and also the need for us to have a regional strategy for bioeconomy, and all the other countries in our region to have individual country strategies. So this was a big landmark. And the other thing which happened just about a couple of weeks ago, we have a CIPE, which is International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, which is responsible for Bioinnovate Africa, and CIDA, the renewed cooperation to support bioscience research and innovation, and foster the development of a sustainable bioeconomy in Eastern Africa. So we are extremely grateful for this contribution from CIDA. Now, let me just tell you a little bit. So the bioeconomy strategy then for Eastern Africa is being spearheaded by the East African community. And right now it is at the final stages of being ratified by the community. So I will just tell you a little bit of the dynamics and what has been happening and the conversation we are having around the evolution of bioeconomy in this region of the world. So we started, way back in the 90s, or maybe stretching back up to the 70s with the UN Environment Conference, discussing, biodiversity and the importance of biodiversity in our economic development, issues of access to genetic resources, issues of benefit sharing, and the like. And as that went along, we also had capacity developed in the area of modern biotechnology, where we are looking mostly at recombinant DNA technologies or genetic engineering for that matter, in different crops to make them more resilient to drought, to salinity, and so on and so forth, and also drugs, of course. But then as these technologies and the capacity has matured in the region, we now started talking about bioscience innovation. How do we actually make products out of all this investment in science? And now we are talking about sustainable bioeconomy, a complete transformation that, our economy in this part of the world has a competitive advantage in developing a sustainable bioeconomy which is also in line with the future trajectories of growth when you think about issues of climate change, global warming, and the like. So this is where we are, and our conversation around bioeconomy, our strategies are all aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, and also the East African Community Vision of 2050, and of course the African Union Agenda of 2063. Sorry. So let me just give you a little bit of context. And the region that I'm speaking for right now is, if you look at that map in the background, map of Africa, you see those 8 countries which are shaded in green. So the Democratic Republic of the Congo just joined the East African community a few days ago. So this region has about 400 million people. Most of it is rural, and agriculture contributes about 33% of the GDP. But why bioeconomy for this region? The region is very rich in biodiversity, and we believe that value addition to this biodiversity and biological resources would enhance the value and contribute more to their conservation, but also the development needs of the region. And of course, we are also cognizant of issues of climate change, global warming, and we want our bioeconomy to be that which reduces CO2 emissions. And then, of course, for us, the bioeconomy is an opportunity to create more jobs, especially for the youth. And very importantly, to look at economic diversification and also sustainable industrialization. So that is key. So diversifying just from agriculture, but also to move into manufacturing and into services. So those kind of transformation in the economy. And we think that bioeconomy will help us to achieve this. Then I think very important in the context of global warming is building resilience and adaptation to climate change. We think that bioeconomy growth pathway will help us to do this. And the regional bioeconomy strategy, if you look at these countries, they have transboundary ecologies, we have connected cultures and traditions. So this makes it a bit easier for us to have a shared vision around the sustainable bioeconomy, but also make this anchored to the SDGs, the ESG vision, and the African Union Agenda of 2063. So the pillars that we are looking at basically is 3. We have the pillar on environmental sustainability, we have climate change adaptation and mitigation, and then sustainable production and consumption. So those are the big ideas. But then priority themes within those is food security, sustainable agriculture, health and well-being, sustainable energy, biologically based industries, and also biologically based products. And where we're putting key activities is in boosting primary production, and then also adding value to that primary production and linking it to regional and global markets, but just addressing the issue of waste, bio-waste, and transforming those into more useful substances. Then, of course, the big thing for us is ensuring that we conserve the biodiversity and also enhance the ecosystem services, which is like the bedrock of our bioeconomy. Some of the challenges we have experienced, and I think we'll continue to experience, is one, the strategy formulation process is a lengthy one and a bit slow. And Christian, as you mentioned, we are not looking at one country, but a region. So we have to make sure we move and do not leave everybody behind. So sometimes that consensus building takes time. And then the other one is achieving intersectoral harmonization. Also is a little bit difficult because we are arguing that bioeconomy is cross-sectoral, but it is important to have health recognize that bioeconomy is their domain, having agriculture, having industry, and all these other sectors coming together. So that is possible, but often quite difficult to achieve. And then, of course, we've had the issue of limited data to convince policymakers that bioeconomy can actually contribute to the GDP, and we need to prove what share of GDP that bioeconomy would contribute to. But having said that, we do have lots of opportunities that we see in developing a sustainable bioeconomy as our growth pathway. So one of it is that value addition and agro-processing or bioprocessing is already recognized by all the countries in the region as a priority. And then secondly, we do have the global movement towards sustainable bioeconomies. And I think this conversation we're having today, looking at what other countries are doing, is testimony that the world is moving towards sustainable bioeconomy. And we argue that, as Africa, we should not be left behind. We should be part and parcel of that global movement. And then we do have favorable policies which are coming up. For example, the ban on polythene bags, and then of course the free trade area. So colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, just to conclude, I just wanted to mention that maybe before I just conclude, just very briefly, COVID-19 has taught us a lesson and also indicated that actually public health is an integral part of the bioeconomy, and we have to build resilient systems, especially in our supply chains. So Christian, let me just finish by saying that in East Africa, we believe we have a competitive advantage in developing a sustainable bioeconomy as a significant part of our future growth pathway. So let me stop at that, and thank you all for listening to me.
Well, thank you very much for a very interesting progress report. Thank you very much for a very interesting progress report. Impressive, difficult, as I said, most difficult for all of us, because you have so many different groups, you have so many different cultures, you have so many different territories with their USPs together to get under one head. But it's an interesting, very, very interesting experiment. The Nordic Council started, bringing people together who have already their strategies. You're just doing the other way. So we're going to discuss that more. Let's come to the next one. Very well-known face to us as well is Ignasi Galindo from the Catalonian Ministry of Agro, Livestock, Fisheries and Food, and he's responsible, the director for external relations there, as a forest engineer with a master's degree in management. And we are very curious on this excellent strategy which Catalonia had in October, how you are going to implement it. You have the floor. Tienes la palabra, hombre.
Thank you very much, Christian. I will share my presentation with you all. I'm trying to do it. You can see now my presentation? It's okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. So thank you very much, Christian, and thank you also to Jukka and Mark for letting us share our experience with you all. And thank you also to all the panelists, because we are learning a lot of their experiences. So I will try to explain you some things that has happened from the day that we announced that our strategy was already passed. That was in September 2021. But I want also to explain you some good news of things that are being happening. The first one is that we have already our strategy. Our strategy was passed last September. We have also created a circular bioeconomy office. It's already running, this office. We have identified more than 200 actions that are already running, actions that are being led by all the regional ministers. We have already presented yesterday our first action plan. I will talk about this action plan later. And we are now in our first Bioeconomy Congress. I am talking to you from the venue where this Bioeconomy Congress is taking place, downstairs. This is a picture that I took this morning from the Bioeconomy Congress. You see, our Congress focuses on bioeconomy, on technology and innovation. More than 300 people are talking now about bioeconomy downstairs. It's very high interest and presential for the first time. So the first thing that I told you is that we have our bioeconomy strategy. With this QR code, you can download the document in English, in Spanish, and in Catalan. Yeah, we have put in place a model of governance based on triennial action plans. The first action plan is now already presented, was yesterday presented. Also, this governance plan is based on regular follow-up reports, annual regular follow-up reports. We have also designed an action confirmation system to check the consistency of all the actions that are proposed within this strategy. And then also a communication plan to anticipate campaigns, publicity campaigns about all what we are doing in the strategy. Next slide, please. So now we are ready with our first action plan that I told you was presented yesterday. Go ahead. Next slide. The methodology that we have used for this first action plan, we have identified 15 transformative actions based on the analysis of over 200 different actions that the government of Catalonia is pushing forward. And we have selected this 15 transformative action following 3 criteria. The first criteria is the need and the opportunity to implement that action. The second criteria is the viability of execution of that action. And the third one is the transformative potential to generate systemic changes. Even though the action plan is already presented, we think that this is a living document. So we will change it during all its implementation. Okay. So next slide, please. Next slide also, yeah. We are working on 4 value chains. The first one is the improvement in forest management and use of forest resources. Catalonia has a very high percentage of surface covered by forest, but with a very low economic activity. So we think that we have to improve this management, and we have found several opportunities. The first one is work in the wood construction. The second one is work on the forest biofuels. The third one, you know that this is a resource very typical of us and also Portugal, that is the cork. And the fourth one is finding high value added bioproducts from biorefineries. Next slide, please. The second value chain is the recovery of livestock dejections and organic waste. We have a very important problem with the dejections, but we also think that we have a big opportunity with those dejections. So the opportunities are related to the production of biogas and biomethane, also the production of innovative organic fertilizer, and the same as I told you with the first value chain, the high value added bioproducts from biorefineries. Next slide, please. The third value chain is the recovery of co-products and byproducts from the food chain. And there, the opportunities that we have found is the reincorporation of substances present in the co-product as ingredients in other food production processes, and also high value added bioproducts from biorefineries. And next slide, please. And the fourth value chain is the creation of resilient agroforest landscape and sustainable provision of ecosystem services. Here, we are not talking about opportunities, but about criteria. No? We are trying to establish resilient agroforest landscape, following, of course, scientific and technical analysis, also trying to improve the public-private cooperation, putting also some governance process on the floor, and then also trying to find mechanisms to incentivize activities in the territory. Next slide, please. So we have found 15 transformative actions. Some of those transformative actions, the 8 first transformative actions, are related to all the chains that I have told first. So we're trying to put in place a bioeconomy observatory, a circular bioeconomy hub, trying to improve the public purchasing, raising citizen awareness, creating circular bioeconomy research and innovation platform, trying to find new professional profiles and ongoing training for the professionals, we have also already created the Circular Bioeconomy Office, creating also a Circular Bioeconomy Co-Management Board. Next slide, please. And then we have 7 actions that are related to one or several of the chains. The first one is improving the energy production from local biomass. The second one is to improve also the access and management of biomass, creating new business models based on circular bioeconomy, creating a network of plants on a pre-industrial scale, production of organic fertilizers and improvement in soil quality, creating pilot projects for the creation of resilient agroforest landscapes, and finally, improving also the ecosystem service valuation. Next slide, please. So this is the structure of the 15 actions. I think that is, you can find all this information on our website. Next slide. The calendar of those 15 actions is from now to July 2024. So we will finish all those actions before 3 years, before the end of this action plan. And there's also, you can find there also the budget for each of those actions. But next slide, please. And the funding. No, we have estimate about 200 million euros for those 15 actions. And we have also identified the possible funding sources, existing sources. So we are not trying to find new sources, but existing sources to be sure that we can put this in place quickly and during those 3 years. Okay, next slide. And finally, you can find all that information in our bioeconomy office. You have the link in this slide. I will share my presentation with you. And here you can find all the documents. Now, all the documents are already in English and in Spanish. Some of the information is only in Catalan, but we'll try to put this also in other languages very soon. And next slide. And okay, thank you very much. And you can ask me whatever you
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ignacio. Thank you very much. Very impressive progress. When you talk us about 300 people who are downstairs listening to the conference, that's wonderful. You know, it's people, planet, policies, you know, and it's not just policies, but it's very concrete actions. I have to really underline that. And that has already been made very clear in Marisa's talks. So very well structured. We're going to discuss that later. Thank you very much and good luck. And then we come to our last part, and that is a new face for us, Camille Bemerguy. She is coming from the former host state of Pará, you know, where we had our meeting last year. She is the director of climate change, environmental science and bioeconomy at the Environmental and Sustainability Secretariat at Belém. Now, Camille, we are very, very curious, you know, what is or has happened since this excellent publication, very surprising, in October last year of the first Brazilian regional strategy. By the way, Pará, a country which has the size 3 times bigger than France. You have the floor.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the forum organizer to present in this roundtable the experience of Pará in the context of the state bioeconomy strategy. And as Christian mentioned, that this strategy was launched at the former World Bioeconomy Forum that took place last year in Pará State, Brazil. And for me, it's an honor and a pleasure to learn so much with the other speakers and exchange through their experience on such different countries and different experience. Today, I'm going to present our experience in the construction and operation of the State of Pará Bioeconomy Strategy. But first of all, it requires a contextualization itself. First of all, the strategy started from the political will of the State of Pará, from the governor of the State of Pará, that demonstrated through the establishment of low carbon policy in order to guarantee sustainable socioeconomic development with the standing forest and guaranteeing the rights of traditional population. For why I started by that contextualization, because Amazon has a different context from Europe, and it has to be taken into account when we think and consider about how to design and better design a strategy that fits to our needs and it's designed specifically to the Amazon people. The challenge we posed ourselves was how to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also generate opportunities for transforming the socioeconomic reality of the state through a set of actions and plans that would promote a sustainable, a fair, and equitable development, and where actions aim at a new economic matrix for the state based on the bioeconomy. And in addition to being strategic, capable of transforming the economic and social reality in a sustainable and a fair way. So that's why for us, this panel speaks closely to the design itself, because it takes into account people and policy itself. But how did we do that? We designed it through a positive political strategy that is being held by the state called Amazon State Plan Now. And why now? Because it has to happen now exactly. We are not only building a policy, but we are putting in action public policies that make possible to promote the transition of the economic matrix of the state to a low carbon economy itself. It's in the axis of the socio-economic development where we anchor the state bioeconomy strategy. A strategy that in general terms, as mentioned before, seeks to increase the efficiency and sustainability of production change and improve rural living conditions with respect for the integrity of the forest, and which is a specific of a diverse state and country as we lead to the rights of indigenous people and local community in addition to creating a business-friendly environment for the bioeconomy. In this context, we thought not only to define the concept of bioeconomy we want for the state of Pará, that was very well posed last year through our state bioeconomy strategy, but mainly, and now it's where we are focused now, to establish strategic and programmatic actions capable of reorienting the socio-economic development of the state. This development takes place from the perspective of an inclusive bioeconomy with the appreciation of environmental assets as well as traditional and sustainable knowledge and production system. The design has been built through the last year with multiple actors and intersectorial dialogue for mapping and identifying which were the priorities, value chains, and which were the gaps for the promoting bioeconomy business. But not only that, but also how to promote the potential of these chains and territories where they are located. In addition to the development of the we also developed some financial and non-financial instruments so to bring incentives for the generation of innovative technology that could be not only through the high-tech technology, but also social technology. That's why we see that was a way for us to transform social biodiversity resources in the state into sustainable product with high added value. The aim now is how to enhance the value of forest products, the sustainable use of biodiversity, the development of sustainable agriculture and forestry production change, and reduce of deforestation and greenhouse gas emissions, but also, as mentioned, and I want to reaffirm, the inclusion of people and traditional communities and of family farmers also to generate income and well-being for the entire populations. Opportunities are being created inside the state through lines of actions foreseen in each of the strategic axes and priorities for the bioeconomy in the state, with the development of programs that can channel quickly and effectively funds based on performance for the promotions of a bioeconomy that bring economic benefits and social environmental issues for the state. To achieve this, we work as an imperative to have financial and technical support that we are getting to partners, multilateral organizations, multilateral banks, through NG Works that works closely with the government in terms of designing those support and also to bring resources so that we can achieve our goals. And basically, those funds are being used for the formation and production of technical and scientific knowledge, more appropriate for bioeconomy in the Amazon, and for innovation in products, process, and service. That for us, it's a big issue because we don't see bioeconomy as just a biotechnological aspect, but through a more gradient bioeconomy in terms that it encompasses process also and service, giving the state the opportunity to ascend to an Amazon bioeconomy with impact, high impact, and helping also to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. That is a point that for us is important. It's not just the socio-economic development, but we have also a big issue and challenge related to the environmental and climate point. In this way, the state bioeconomy strategy in Pará that was launched last year has been serving to guide the constructions of lines of actions in bioeconomy based on three areas: research, development, and innovation, through the promotion of scientific and technological knowledge, with the strengthening of science, technology, and innovation to value and innovate bioeconomy. The second one, that is very important for us also, the genetic heritage and associate traditional knowledge that comes from the recognition that we should protect and value and enhance the genetic heritage and associate that with traditional knowledge. So to integrate that into the policies that we are developing, and building also associate with the guarantee of social environmental safeguards, such as respect for the identity and will of traditional people and community in the state of Pará. And the third is the production change and sustainable business, establishing an attractive investment environment with the strengthening and verticalization of such value change and social biodiversity, to generate local development, employment, income, and equitable distribution of benefits. It's important to point that these policies has been built from a dialogue with multiple stakeholders, such as public sector, private sector, third sector, civil society, and traditional communities. We understand that bioeconomy is more and more a transversal policy, and such it demands, and that they are part from since the beginning of the policy construction process, which I think from the presentation we just have the opportunity to see that is the common from the constructions of the actions plan. And I think that it's a point that should inspire other opportunities for the bioeconomy itself. Recently, and in fact yesterday, we installed the working group with 40 components from public, private, third sector, and traditional community to help us to dig even more in building action. And by October of this year, we will launch the state plan in a more ambitious way. In other words, the constructions of the strategy in the state started from listening to the Amazonians themselves and other importations of bioeconomy concepts that can serve other regions of the world but do not respond to our needs, and was made by Amazonian natives to themselves. And to conclude, I would say that this strategy seeks to collaborate with the arrangements to attract private investments, so that the government understands that only through public and private investment we will succeed on reaching the goals we are imposing for the strategy, and also through the elaborations of a regulatory framework with a view of promoting tax incentives for the production itself. So it's a policy that's already in the ground, prioritizing medium to long-term planning with effective protection, legalization, and valorization of territory, respecting the identity of our people. In the case of Pará, it must be a policy that guarantees those benefits. We, through the integrated public policy, we are in the moment to formalize even more the adoption of short and medium and long-term guidelines, and encourage the development of actions in favor of sustainable development and climate balance. In this sense, the state of Pará reaffirms its commitment to act firmly in the search of practical solutions with the objective of reducing deforestation and restoring, and that is an important part of our policy, the state forest, in addition to promoting the livelihoods of the population and the people of the forest. Thank you, and happy to here today again, sharing with you the progress of our strategy.
Well, thank you very much for your very interesting revealing of further progress in Pará. It's not easy. Amazonia is absolutely different from the European and other parts. We have to see that. And therefore also very much good luck, and be a model also for other parts in Latin America. Dear colleagues, we have a terrible problem, because instead of having 30 minutes time, you know, everybody had much too long, and I have to punish you for that. Therefore, we are going to reduce down our time for discussion, and I'm going to concentrate our discussions on the very, very clear question from my side to each of you. What are the lessons you learned and you think, having heard what happened in many other countries of the world, you would share with us to be of benefit to the audience and also to the panelists? And I like to start with Marisa.
Hi, Christian. Regarding the lessons learned with our plan, I think the most important that I would like to share is that there was a very important value that came out from the interactions across the value chain.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that these three investments under the Resilient and Recover plan dedicated to bioeconomy will be, it's like pilot investments or pilot projects, will be very, very important to understand and to establish the foundation for transforming other sectors. So I would like to also to say that we had the approach top down and up bottom, and that was very interesting because we learn a lot doing this kind of thinking, and that was very important also to the end of the final document.
Mm-hmm. Is there a second thought which you would share from your experience? Because I found a very interesting point, for example, the specialization from the very beginning. You wanted to do raisins, footwear, and also textile, and not everything. Is that something which you would also recommend to others, that they should prioritize from the very beginning, or should they be more open or general?
I think it's very important to focus and not to, because we built our action plan in two different ways. General measures in 5 pillars that we are going from the raw materials to the consumer and monitoring, and this is not specific for any kind of sector. And then we decided to do it to 3 sectors. And these 3 sectors will be very important to establish what is going to be, if something is going to be wrong, we can change for the future sectors that we are going to invest. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to focus also and to trying to extract the best of the transformation of these sectors to bio-based products. I want to also to say that all the investments that we are in the 3 sectors, they have to dedicate part of the investment to the marketing, to sustainable and responsible consumption, so we can raise awareness of the final consumer or the society to these products instead of the fossil-based products.
Thank you. I very much like, your emphasis on the value chain, with all implications for the many stakeholders, which are very different ways of people you're just informing. Jorge, what are your lessons you propose and share?
The lessons that I mentioned, and actually I found that pieces of them in our colleagues, is first of all, a strong interinstitutional work This project cannot be developed with a single area. You will be putting together different institutions, different entities, and to make this articulation action plan on that. And this should be done not only in a horizontal way, should be in the vertical way, cannot be done just in the national way. For example, should be agreed and built in the regions with the different actors from the quadruple helix, if you can to use this expression. Then you should articulate everybody in this task. Also, is that is asking to review what is the policy instrument portfolio you have, and maybe you have to develop new tools for going ahead with this area in the bioeconomy. A third that I will point it out is that it will be very intensive in international cooperation, because actually you will have benefits local, but you will produce also global benefits, as you will be working against climate change and trying to defeat that, and will be moving resources from these different elements. And the fourth is that has to have a lot of inclusiveness, because you have to produce new things that will be sustainable from the point of view in the social way, in the environmental way, and of course have a sustainable economical way for the regions. And a key point is that always to keep in mind that you have to produce or to try to promote local value addition on that. A colleague here in Colombia, an expert, Elizabeth Hudson, say you have to take care that water in biomass doesn't travel very well, because maybe it's not the idea to move a lot of water into a biomass. You have to try to promote how to add value on that, and take in this way the biomass transformed, keeping all the possible added value in the local way. That is also something that will be connected with the thing that you were mentioned before, of the integration of the different parts of the value chain, or the value network, actually, because it becomes a network that should be very well distributed, the benefits on that will be producing the adding value on the chain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it will be the main points on that. And of course, the territoriality, that is to keep in mind always the circumstances, conditions, possibilities of each territory on that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we say that we cannot think that in Colombia we will have one bioeconomy. We are 32 provinces. Then we think that maybe we have even more than 32 views of the bioeconomy, each one according to the circumstances of each territory on that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will be very intensive in biotechnology, some other will be more intensive in local preservation on that. But I believe that this is one of the good things of the bioeconomy, that will allow you to adapt and to generate solutions for each territory according with its capabilities, its potential, its conditions on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. I was impressed by also the policy portfolios you described, how innovative, the thinking in the bioeconomy can be to work out new portfolios. Julius, what are your priorities and your thoughts about that, and the lessons you might share with us?
Thank you, Christian. I do agree with our previous speakers, panelists, but maybe I could just single out three things. One is, I think Jorge also mentioned the need to maintain that intersectoral or multisectoral coordination is critical, because as we understand, bioeconomy is cross-cutting. And it's important that each of the sectors look at themselves in the bioeconomy view, so that you have a common vision. And the second area is what we found important is facilitating the links between academia or researchers, especially in the universities, research institutes, and the industry, as well as government. So these three entities, working together has been powerful in our view in helping to advance certain areas. Simply because, bioeconomy in the way it's moving is being more and more science intensive. And then in our case, regional cooperation is important. So we have, unlike Marisa, we're very specific. We do have some priorities, but we're also mindful of the country niches. So it's, countries have their niches, they have the priorities, but somehow we also have to bring them regionally. And so that regional collaboration is important. And what we are looking even more is how then we connect with the global value chains. So Christian, I think those are three important takeaways I could have, based on our experience here in East Africa.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. Very interesting, and particularly the global value chains. The trend all over the world is just the contrary now. We're going to repatriate, as some people say. We're going to relocate. We'll have to see how that goes. Ignacio, what are your lessons?
Well, maybe we have learned three important lessons during all this process. The first one is that it's very important to involve the real stakeholders. We have to identify and involve in the action plan and the strategy the real stakeholders, and not trying to put us in their place. So this one is the first one. The second one is to find which is our role as administration. And we think that our role is maybe to identify the opportunities. The second one is trying to solve the bottlenecks, and also to sometimes avoid or solve administrative barriers that still exist. And of course, to fill the gap existing between several strategies that already exist involving things related to the bioeconomy. And then the third lesson that we have learned is that it's important to make it simple. I mean, our strategy and our action plan is very simple. Only 15 actions, and we try to focus on what we have identified that we have to change, because all the other stakeholders are already making things, no? And we have to focus on what is necessary. Our motto: we want things to happen. So we are trying that. And only a last reflection from my side. I've seen that someone on the chat has asked why we are not looking to the planet, to the global. Of course, we look to the planet through our strategy, but now in our action plan we are looking local. But of course, we have to be aware of what's happening in all the planet. But at the strategy level, on action plan level. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, in particular for your last remark, because I fully agree with that. And I also think that for your strategy, it is so interesting that you are now going to a lot of people, that you had a lot of preparatory meetings. Also what Marisa said, that you had a public consultation, so that it is not just off reality, but not building up that chateau en Espagne, as we say, but it's really down earth. Now, what are your lessons after the first 5 months, Camille?
Well, I think that my main lessons were, first of all, you have to have a political will and a good governance for the process itself. That's the starting point, in my point of view. The second is related to putting in the discussion the stakeholders that are going to be building that. And with the proper governance, you ensure that will not be a plan for intention, but a plan of action indeed. The other one is to identify priorities and value chains and territories where you can start. You have to bring a demonstration effect. So like a display that you can show that what I thought to be can be put in action in the ground with results, with impact. Giving that demonstration, and I'm talking a state like Pará that is 2.5 a size of France, of the country, and so that is also an important thing for us. And in terms of assure funds, to how to channel funds for the process itself has to be in consideration for the action plan. I think that through that, you can really think that the next month, we're going to be succeed on the movement in the ground for the strategy and for the plate, for the state, as diverse and complex as we have.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. Now I look on my watch, so we have another 10 minutes time for involving the audience. I thank all the panelists at this moment already for everything what they have done. Very interesting. I'm going to conclude in 15 minutes and my impressions on that. So thank you. Extremely rich content you have with not only food for thought, but also wood for thought. So Mark, what are questions and how are we going to distribute them to our panelists?
I just think we have not much time, so let's just ask 1 or 2 questions to each of the panelists. Just a general question first. First of all, I must mention somebody in the chat who's been very active. Stefan Kepler has kept me busy in there. So there's been quite a few questions. So not all of his will be answered, but I think he posed a good one to start with, which was, the world has been through a lot. We've had the pandemic, and now we have the Ukrainian war, which looks very serious indeed. Has it helped the world focus on the bioeconomy, or has it not? What has these big things, these big happenings done to the bioeconomy?
Well, I'm going to answer immediately. It's an impossible question, because the bioeconomy never ever claimed to be the silver bullet for the world. Mm-hmm. It was always very modest, and I'm one of the founders with a very, very much beginning said, we have some contributions with the enormous potentials of biological resources. We can help. We can help with being climate neutrality, with innovation, and also with circularity, etc. That's it. But they never ever claimed to be really the forerunner for saving the planet. And therefore, I cannot accept such a question. I don't see there. I don't see there any connects.
Perhaps I've phrased the question wrong, which is, do you think that these big major happenings has made us focus on the bioeconomy or not?
Oh, that is a completely different question.
Yeah, so forgive me.
There, I'm going to ask the panelists. I just want to have 2 or 3 phrases. I think it has, because it had sharpened our views on the question to what extent are really value chains globally or not much more regionally of value. And the bioeconomy knows how to handle that. And the second point, they look very much now on food. Food was a little underestimated in the bioeconomy discussion. It was more chemistry and biosolutions for many things, but food was blah, 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 blah. But now it comes up that, the question of food chains, the question of food production, the question of healthy food, and will be an enormous relevance for the whole world, where, I think the discussion within the bioeconomy will help. So that is from my perspective, but very good question. The door is open for all the other panelists. Marisa.
I fully agree with you, Christian. And I think I can answer more from the pandemic view. We know that the pandemic surfaced the instability of the global logisticals, making us more focused on local supply chains and lending us to a more resilient country. And I think the war is coming to reinforce that more. So regarding the pandemic, we also decided that all investment need to contribute to stop the loss of biodiversity and preserve natural resources. So in order to have healthy ecosystems and most important, to promote human well-being.
Yeah. Well, anyone else of our panelists who want to comment? Very good answer. Anyone else who wants to comment, please?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
Julius.
go.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I do agree with Marisa. I think from this region of the world, the pandemic really helped us also to, first of all, look at our biodiversity and the indigenous knowledge that accompanies that biodiversity was extremely important, in helping us find even local remedies, local therapeutics, looking at how we can improve nutrition based on some of the local foods we have, including insect proteins, leafy vegetables, and fruits. So this was extremely important in helping people stay healthy. And I think what this has taught us is it has brought health and health innovations at the forefront of the bioeconomy. So even in our programming now, when we talk about bioeconomy, we have really public health, disease epidemics, pandemics, and so on, as part and parcel of our strategy.
I'm very glad that you bring that up. And in this context, one word which has not been all mentioned, and that's One Health. In 2007, when we started with the bioeconomy, it was an integrated part of the bioeconomy, that you cannot separate human health from animal health. And now today it's even plant and ecosystems health. So, that is going to be revived, I think, also under the pandemic, but also under the terrible impacts of the wars. Ignacio, if I have seen, you wanted to say.
Yeah, of course, I fully agree of all you have said before. But what I feel is that the pandemic and also the war now is helping us to explain in an easier way what we are trying to do. Some years ago, and that's sad. That's very sad. What I'm saying. Some years ago, when we to focus on the local resources, we had to explain that related to the footprint of the transportation, etc. Now we can also say that it's important to focus on local resources because we need to improve those resources. So now it's easier for us to explain what we are trying to do. But also I say that it's very sad. And last thing, the One Health theory is one of the principles of our strategy, of course. So that's very important to put in place those things.
Another question mark, please, because we don't want to monopolize on one.
No, sure. So here's another one also to all panelists, and that is there a separate budget reserved for the bioeconomy in your countries, or if not, should there be? Who wants to answer that?
Well, you had many of you had budgets. Many of you had budgets, figures. You might be a little more open on that. Jorge,
So,
you had you clearly have a budget. Is there? And you had this budget line, getting your royalties from mining and oil industry. Extremely interesting.
We have focused some budget on that, but always to find that you need higher investment in doing that. And now the challenge is how to redirect some budget on that and how to use that. For example, as you mentioned, we decided some years ago to invest part of the royalties from oil and mining to promote science, technology, and innovation. And now we are focusing also in bioeconomy, because one of the things that has been is value on that is, and is also a result from the pandemic, is to recognize the value of the knowledge and they merge the knowledge with the biomass, biodiversity, producing solutions and producing things for the well-being from everybody. That, but it will be require higher investment along all the value chain of that. Then we have to be very creative to try to find more resources how to invest on that, because it will be required that in order to develop. We believe that it will give very good benefits, but it will require a lot of investment on doing that. There is some paradigms that have been changing, and this is the other thing that will happen with the war and with the pandemic, that some paradigms are changing and is giving you the opportunity to push these other alternatives as are derived from the bioeconomy.
Well, I think we have not yet talked about the financial consequences of the war and the interruptions of chains all over the world, and the enormous deficits you have in countries. What will be what will be the follow-up for research, technology, and science, etc. But in that respect, I found the model of Marisa extremely interesting, of these consortia, where she also she showed to us the private money which has been allocated and mobilized and triggered by the public money. And this is exactly what the European Union in the CBE is proposing, that you have a tandem of mobilizing private capital, which will be much more used than ever before, if we like it or not, and then combine it in very concrete groupings of companies, actors, and stakeholders, NGOs, or whatever it is. I found that quite interesting. Yes, please, Camille, and then the last question.
Just related to what you just mentioned, Christian, it's exactly what the state of Pará is taking place in consideration for the plan on bioeconomy, that we have public budget for the strategy itself, but also and mainly we can use it so that we promote an environment to attract private capital, and also support from international organizations, NGOs, to help us build that environment and create the actions in the ground. Only the governmental budget is not the way. More and more, we are working so that to bring private capital. That's why the governance and the jurisdictional environment is so important to bring confidence on investing in the state.
A last question, Mark. What can you?
There was
Mark.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yes.
I can ask a related question about this
Yes.
financial issue. So that hearing some voices, that there is some budget with this research for the actions related to the bioeconomy, and maybe the one idea, whether you could then elaborate a bit that, and this is again related to climate change mitigation. The ETS programs and the carbon, taxes, some part of the world are, generating, globally, some $850 billion. That's globally, and maybe in the Portugal is something else, or in Finland or Colombia, like in Finland, it's some like 400 million, which is then created through that, scheme. My question is that, do you see any interconnection that, that you are saying there that, the bioeconomy do play a role when it comes to climate mitigation? Do you see any possibility that funding could be then used to your purposes? Is there any that kind of discussion in your country or in your region?
Who wants to speak?
That might be the tough one. So let's think about it.
Well, if that's not, from my point of view, at least what I observe is there's a terrible competition between many, many other expenditures that could be on artificial intelligence, digitalization. It could be now on the question of energy sovereignty, which will probably kill everything. You have to see that the world is completely different than 1 year ago. We have unfortunate to see that. So the energy sovereignty and paying much more for oil and gas as we ever thought about, at least for the next 2 or 3, 4, 5 years, will be something we simply will have to face. if we like it or not. And therefore, but there is a lot of private money there. It's not only oligarch money. and so how to get that, and how to mobilize that, because without money you can't do that. And if you just want to print and have an inflation, which countries have gone through, you can also do that. So it's a rather dim outlook. I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah. But that's a reason bioeconomy need to fight.
Absolutely. If it's not overdone.
Yeah.
And too many expectations put in it. Julius, you have the floor.
Yeah, Jukka, you raise an interesting and of course difficult question. My answer is yes, we need to see more funding flowing into bioeconomy products. And as we see it right now, when you look at all the business models and alternatives, bio-based alternatives, they are still quite expensive, for industry to invest. They need a lot of R&D investment. So I think our duty is to argue that, bioeconomy is part and parcel of this global, climate or carbon emissions reductions. And whatever we do, we need to inject in financing. And I think if we look at how we should invest, I am of the view that we need to look at integrated approaches. For example, when we invest in digital economy, we also need to think about how the digital economy relates with the bioeconomy.
Absolutely.
So that integration and integrated financing, I think, would be helpful.
Yeah. And indeed, it is so that, this regulatory, let's say, the carbon market is something like $850 billion today globally. When it comes to voluntary, carbon market, it's about 1 billion. By 2030, it would be something like 30 to 50 billion. Somebody is talking about 200 billion. So there's a lot of money, but it's not viable. So let's try to find the channel that or the bioeconomy activities.
Well, I was surprised that, in all these discussions on gas, liquefied natural gas, etc., no one raises the voice and says, now, why are we not joining it with biogas or biomethane and try to really improve the efficiency and also to increase tremendously this bioproduction of gas, which you have some voices in the Nordic countries on that, and also in northern Germany where people came up with that. But the bioeconomy evidently is not taking this chance at this moment also to enter again, the bioenergy and the biofuels discussion. Because, there's one point clear, we will not be able to exclude any option of any energy supply in the next years, if these reach huge markets in Russia and Ukraine and wherever will be closed for one reason or other. So that's another point, challenge for the bioeconomy.
Yep.
So I don't think we have any more questions.
No.
I think we
don't have time.
we don't have time for that. And so I might give the floor to Jukka, please.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Christian, and thanks for all panelists with the very insightful discussion. And when it comes to these questions, we are then recording all these questions, and we do our best to provide answers to your questions that later on. We have all your contact information, so don't worry about it. So while Christian was asking about post-learning lessons out of this all, may I dare to ask also about Christian? Did you have any lessons out of this all?
Oh my God! Well, I have some. Quite a few ones. First of all, I'm surprised. That in the really large majority of all cases which were presented to us today from all over the world, the bioeconomy evidently seems to fly. It's not just something on paper. It's not just a strategic and political review or a deliberation, but you have companies to do that. you have initiatives who go that, you have products to come, you have new investments, practical investments in RTDI, you have efforts to integrate, you have the feeling that you have new policy areas and new lines of investments, like for example, in Colombia, I said that 3 times. So it's a tremendously, that's my first lesson, much more dynamic situation than I thought, also within the implementation. It's a difference between dynamics on paper, for strategies and for roadmaps, etc. But then when you're going to act, when you're going something to happen, to see something to happen, that's the first one. The second one is the diversity is growing. And that is something where I'm not yet sure to what extent that will be positive or negative in the end. The diversity is really growing. When we talk about people in Amazonia, we talk primarily on indigenous people and also on indigenous knowledge. That's very important. That doesn't play any role in Europe. Maybe for the Sami in Finland, maybe. It will be something for us. No, maybe we have traditional knowledge which got lost in medicine or something, but that's how you see it in Amazonia, and probably also you use that something for you in Africa, or for Madame Noor in Indonesia, Malaysia, Kalimantan, or wherever it is. That's something we just tapped. And that makes it extremely complicated also if you talk about people. It makes it also very complicated if you look on the tremendous high amount of new policies which are around. There is a new Finnish updated strategy on the bioeconomy just published a few days ago. I want to tell that to all our friends. Very readable, very worthwhile to be read. And there's a figure 2 or 3 where you see in what policy fabric the bioeconomy strategy of Finland is embedded. Wow, I can only say, wow. And all these things must be implemented, must be reckoned. And that's for me, therefore, my second important lesson I learned here today. And that is the very simple and naive and trivial statement that you need to integrate, that you need to have also in the area of administration and policy, and integration between the multi-sectors, between the different policy sectors, etc. And that you, for the implementation, have one office, one steering group, one co-managerial group is extremely important. If you don't do that, we get lost because of the high diversity and even growing diversity of the institutional framework and ambiente of the bioeconomy. And the third lesson which I learned is money. I'm very positively surprised that practically all statements said there is money there. It's not just a strategy, but it's embedded also in a financial potential framework. And that is extremely important. And here, if we like it or not, we have to do much more. And please don't forget, we don't talk about the biosociology. We don't talk about bioecology. We talk about the bioeconomy. And if someone doesn't like it, then he should go and look at something else. But it's bioeconomy. And therefore, a bioeconomy without money in our times is not thinkable. And therefore, we have to take up also these new initiatives and new experiences which were said and were informed, we were informed here about. We take that up as a very important lessons also for any newcomer. These are my lessons, extremely dynamic, highly diverse, and I don't hope it will be too dim for the future.
I think that we can all share the very same desire. So I don't add on anything more. We are running out of the time. So I would like to thank all these the panelists and our viewers of this program, and reminding that all this is recorded, so you could then see that also later on from our YouTube channel. So a few words only about what's happened next. That we carry on with this journey, and the next roundtable will take place on 14th of June, And this time we will focus on the forest industry. So there will be speakers from the forest industry, and we are doing that in a collaboration with the Confederation of the European Paper Industry, CEPI, the Forest Products Association of Canada, FPAC, and the Brazilian Tree Industry Association, IBA. And they are already confirmed speakers, but Ilkka Hämälä, who is then CEO of the Metsä Group, and Derek Ningbo, who is then president of the FPAC. So we will hear in their perspective. We will touch in a bit also about this, that what does it mean, what's the interconnection of the bioproducts and climate change mitigation. So we will see here also from the executives' point of view that what does it then mean, what are their measures, and how they are then implementing their strategies within their area. So looking forward to hearing you also in that event, and also there will be also the membership event if you are interested about the membership programs, as we have named that as the World Bioeconomy Circle. There will be in-depth discussions within the Inside event, which is taking place 21st of June, and there we are discussing about the biochemicals. So also for Stefan, if you'd like to join along, that you will have an in-depth, you have the products in your mind, so please join along also to that debate that what we are going to have. But with these words, I wish you all very, very peaceful and happy Eastern time. So have a good rest, and looking forward to see you in the near future. So thanks to you all, thanks for your listeners, and thanks for the panelists and for the Christian, so well moderated panel.
And I thank all to the panelists and all to you. Thank you very much, and have a good time.